Cut it. We don't get to play that for any longer tonight, boys. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Show. I am your host, Robbie Tan. Joined with me is my good friend, Finn Sands. You guys know him, Celtics Insiders, and the X-Man, Xavier. Xavier, don't throw it up tonight. I don't want to see it.
I haven't.
The Celtics get embarrassed. I mean, absolutely embarrassed at home in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference quarterfinals against the Miami Heat, 111-101. A lot to dive into, guys. I mean, the Celtics looked like a shell of what they have been and what we've seen from them for, 83 games now. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. Your initial thoughts, reactions, takeaways on the loss tonight.
Yeah, for me, it just felt like the Celtics went away from all the good they did in the regular season. You know, the pacing was horrible. They kept trying to pick out the matchups, and when that didn't work, they continued to go to it instead of playing Celtics basketball, pushing the pace, finding the open man, getting the open three-pointer, and that was just disappointing. And you know, it's just like they never got it going. I think Porzingis is a focus point within himself. You know, we talk about him as the zone breaker, the guy who could be the X factor in the series. But, I mean, today he was just awful with the turnovers, the poor shooting, the minus 30 plus minus. It was a disaster night for him. And quite frankly, we just can't have that be happening.
Here we go. Lazy. It was so lazy. It was pathetic. The entire game, as soon as they came out, they had no energy. It was terrible. And here's the thing. Joe Mazzulla talked about all season how everything culminates for the playoffs and things would change. This bag of tricks that the players would be ready up for the challenge and the energy would be off the charts and they'd be running around sinking threes and they'd blow everyone out. It didn't happen, and it's everybody's fault on the court. But more importantly, Joe Maz, what is the strategy? What was the strategy to just let the Heat shoot three-pointers all night like it was shooting practice? They were wide open. And sure, they hit at a ridiculous rate. They were like 55% from downtown. But on the same token, how many wide-open shots are you going to let them take? And we talked about over and over again that you might have a philosophy, but when things start to change, you have to adapt. And once it happened that Miami wasn't going to miss a three tonight, were you going to put anyone on the perimeter? I don't care who it was. Haywood Highsmith, Hami Hawkins, Tyler Hero, all these guys shooting north of 50% from three. Are you going to do anything about it? Or are you just going to let them shoot all night and eventually lose the game and then look up the scoreboard like you're stunned? It's embarrassing. And if you're going to talk about effort, you shouldn't have to talk about it in the playoffs. This is a regular season thing. And I was one of the first people to come to the defense of not only the players, but Joe Maz, and to talk about how the low energy towards the end of the season was acceptable because they had nothing to play for. Hey, guess what, guys? It's the playoffs now. You have something to play for. I don't care if Jimmy Butler's suiting up for this team. How many times are you going to let one team kick you in the nuts over and over again and punk you in your own house? Because right now, TD Garden is just the Kaiser Center, whatever the hell it is in Miami North. That's what it's become. Because Eric Spoelstra owns the building, and he owns the Celtics. And it's ridiculous at this point that I'm sitting here, and it's a 1-1 series. And look, they might as well win in 5. It doesn't matter if they win in 5 or 6. They're likely going to win. What matters is that they're letting this team do it to them again. That the mental edge they have again. At what point are you going to put your big point pants on? And look, I don't think Brown and Tatum were that bad tonight. I think this was like B games for both of them, but I don't think they were tragic in any way. But the other guys, White had like good 2-minute stretch in the fourth quarter. He was awful. Drew Holiday, he was embarrassing. And that's another guy that got punched in the mouth by Miami last year, and he was embarrassing. Kristaps Porzingis, guess what? We're not in Washington anymore. You can't do that now, all right? That was embarrassing. The bench, Peyton Pritchard, I forgot he was out there because he's an offensive guy. You're not even giving him the ball. What's he doing out there for so long if he's not going to touch the ball? Sam Hauser, welcome to the game. You didn't do anything. You looked embarrassing for half the time you were out there. Al Horford, Bam was just pulling up from mid-ranges all night, torching you when you were in the game, torching you. You looked all of 38. So at what point do you have any self-pride and say, okay, even if we're going to lose swinging? Because I didn't see that tonight.
Xavier got his mind off. Xavier, I like you. A lot of what you said was what a lot we're going to talk about, guys. We welcome in Zach from the Celtics fan page in with us. Zach, You know the drill, man. Ugly one tonight. Your initial thoughts, your reactions, and your takeaways.
I didn't catch all of the rant, or I'm not sure everything's but that's been said. I don't like when we let teams deviate us from what works. And what works is the Celtics taking and hopefully making a lot of threes. They took only 30 tonight, which I believe I saw as their second or third lowest this season. I honestly, there's probably a lot more that goes into this game. You know, making sure Tyler Herro doesn't have 14 assists or whatever it was. Defense not getting into a transition game really at all. But the bottom line is this team is at their best when they're taking and making a lot of threes, and I look forward to getting back to that in Game 3.
So this is what I got for you. I think Boston really let Miami dictate the game, and Boston is too talented, and their talent is too well decorated to allow that to happen. And I will say, I don't think this happens against any other team in the NBA. It is this one team. It is this one roadblock that these guys have seemed to run into now for what is the third year. 4 times in the last 5 years, the Miami Heat have shown up against the Boston Celtics and have caused them hell. I liked what I saw from Jaylen Brown. I think B is very harsh. I think Jaylen Brown had an A game. I think the everything, the energy was there. Tatum, I'd give a B+ game. You're right. I think he was good. He could have given me more. In terms of what Miami showed us isn't worrying is the problem, which I'm giving this team the benefit of the doubt again. But Miami's play tonight on the offensive end was not sustainable. They put up, as we got Ian Angelo joining us, they put up a franchise record from behind the arc. Ian, I'll get to you in 1 second. They put up a franchise record from behind the arc, scored 111 points. I just don't know if that's sustainable. But Ian, joined at a perfect time, man. You know the deal. I mean, you already know what I'm about to say. I don't even need to tell you. You're a seasoned vet.
Don't you just love, you gotta love the Celtics consistency, right? You just gotta love when they play the hits, What's a series against the Heat without losing a game where Miami just absolutely torches you from 3 and you just look like you forgot how to play offense for the second half of the game? I don't know. That was terrible. That was an absolutely terrible performance. The Celtics literally got beat at their own game tonight.
Right.
Getting absolutely torched from downtown, and they didn't even try to stop it. And that was just terrible. That was awful.
So I guess here's the thing is right now where we stand, I mean, God, we're 1-1 to the Miami Heat. So my whole thing with this loss, right, is more so that, Ian, you make a good point. Miami just beat you exactly how you like to play, right? They used your own bag of tricks against you. And Boston adjusted, right? I'll give them credit. They adjusted. They took what the defense gave them, and that was attacking the basket. But it felt like that's not how you are supposed to play, right? Like when you are the Boston Celtics, the 64-win Boston Celtics, they're the best team in the league. You're one of the greatest offensive teams in NBA history. You have the 4th highest point differential in NBA history. You do not steer away from who you are and what you do, unless you're playing another top dog like the Denver Nuggets, right? There, you're going to have to switch things up a little bit, and you're going to have to switch things up here. But what it bamboozles me is how Boston completely went. They didn't even look like the Boston Celtics, guys. They looked like a completely different team out there. It was isolation. It was no contest on there's no closeouts. I mean, it's at some point, I get it. I said it myself in the group chat, law of averages, right? You'd figure Miami's going to start missing them. But at some point, you just kind of have to admit that, listen, that's not applicable here. So it's like, to me, I think the most frustrating part about this game for the Celtics is the fact that they just absolutely just looked like a shell of themselves. They looked like they had, other than Tatum and Brown, no one knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for me, that goes back to the whole idea of pacing of the game. Like Scal was saying throughout the broadcast that they care too much about picking out the matchups. when Porzingis was in the paint and he'd have Martin on him, or they were just trying to find the mismatch. They were hunting way too much, and it got to them. And I think that's the same thing that happened last year as well, where you get caught up in this trap, and then you start turning the ball over, and everyone knows turnovers are the epitome of a comeback, right? And, when they got out in transition, it's like they would slow the ball down, just hunt these matchups instead of making these open passes and playing Celtics basketball, which is, getting these open threes and making them as they did the whole year.
Well,
martyr, Rob. I feel like a martyr because these are things I've said all year that apparently just now are coming to fruition. It just means more now in the playoffs. Because I've talked about for weeks now the fact that, there's so many things that this team does well, but they could do it better. And I don't know why they're not practicing them. And then Joe Mazzulla would be asked about it, and he'd say, we're saving it for the playoffs. One of those things was the KP post-ups. Excuse me, I'm talking so fast. One of them was the Jason Tatum on the low block. One of them was about transition offense and not just taking threes, jacking up threes in transition. And all that came to a head today. And so at what point do you hold the guy accountable who's engineering the offense, which is Joe?
I will say this. I won't lie. You know me. I've been hard on Joe all year. But I can't look at what happened tonight and point the finger at Joe. It would be wrong. It would be 100% wrong, Xavier. And here's why. It's because at the end of the day, if you look at what Boston was doing defensively and offensively, there were things that was working, right? What doesn't work, what won't win you a game, and something that Joe Mazzulla can't do is Kristaps Porzingis and what he was doing. I mean, to start the game, guys, Kristaps pulled a 35-footer. So let's talk about Kristaps, and that sums up where his mind was at, right? It's like, yes, could Joe Mazzulla do a couple things better? 100%, right? Everyone could have. But right now, this game is on the players, right? You are the ones that just got punked by the 8th seed, right? And Joe got punked too, but I don't look at this game. I want to talk about Kristaps though, guys, because he was virtually useless out there. In a game, and this is nuts to me. In a game in which the Celtics lost by 10, and were kind of in it all game, right? Teetering around, they had the lead, and they were like 6, and then 10, and then 5, and then 10. Kristaps in 30 minutes of play managed to be a minus 32. Jaylen Brown also was a minus 22. Tatum was a plus 6. Holiday, believe it or not, was a plus 10. Figures from the defensive end. White was a minus 23. I mean, let's talk about Kristaps first. 6 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Defensively, he did his thing. I'll give him credit. 3 steals, 2 blocks. But I mean, God, he would catch the ball on the low block, and he would do nothing with it, Ian. And I need a reason for it. I need you to give me something about Kristaps tonight.
Well, the biggest problem, and this wasn't only Kristaps, this was everybody. Every single time the Celtics tried to post up the Miami Heat would pull the chair, and the Celtics would just turn the ball over. I don't really understand it. They kind of went away from what was working like all season and decided to play a post-up game, which really didn't work. Like, I know it worked in game 1 a little bit when Porzingis was switched on to Tyler Hero, but he was trying to post up Bam. He was trying to post up Caleb Martin. He was trying to post up Highsmith.
Right.
None of that was going to work because the Miami Heat have active hands and they're going to continuously poke at the ball. So it just kind of was insane. I didn't really understand what they were doing. They literally were trying to play some 1980s like style offense. Like, I don't know what they were trying to do. They're trying to play the triangle offense. I honestly have no idea what they were doing. And it didn't work. And Porzingis was terrible. And it didn't help that, that 30-footer to start the game wasn't great. And the fact that was
terrible.
And the fact that he just could not hit an open layup to save his life. And I don't know. It wasn't just Porzingis because everyone was doing the same thing. It was all the same problem when they were trying to post up, but I don't know. It was just a terrible showing all around.
I'd also add that it seemed like they were like, everyone knows Tyler Hero, not a good defender, but it felt like they went away from their offense to go at Tyler Hero. Like it didn't like it's fine to attack Hero as long as it flows in the way that their offense works. But it felt like they went away from their offense in order to do that. And it reminded me a lot of Game 4 of the finals when Steph Curry got into foul trouble in the second half. And they went out of their offense to try to take Steph off the dribble and get him in the post and stuff like that. And it didn't work. And so it's fine to attack a bad defender and whatever, but it needs to be in the flow of how your offense regularly goes. And I mean, Porzingis was terrible. Jalen carried for the latter half of the first half, but other than that, wasn't great. I wouldn't put the blame on Brown and Tatum. I think there needs to be more from the other guys.
100%.
Drew, KP, obviously, and then Derek, too, wasn't that good either.
Yeah, but this is where the Missoula piece comes in, and this is kind of why I'm so frustrated with Missoula, not Rob. I'm just taking it out on Rob because I'm annoyed with Joe Maz. But this is kind of proving my point, though. So everything you're saying is kind of part of my greater thesis here, is because you're right. They haven't done this for so long. This is kind of random that they're playing offense like this. That's on the coach, because I've been preaching for months that you need more post touches for Porzingis. And clearly, when he got them today, he looked uncomfortable, which it is what it is. At some point, you're 7'2". You should feel a little bit comfortable. I don't care how long you haven't got consistent post touches. You're a basketball player. Figure it out. But B, the lack of adjustments from not only Porzingis, who I think was a disaster in this game, and he reverted back to the Ryan Anderson, I'm running around the three-point line again. But from the rest of the team, and especially guarding the three-point line, which a lot of it was coaching, because a lot of times they would double on the dribble penetration, whether it was Hero or Martin, they'd leave a guy open, and they'd splash a wide open three. And by like the 15th, I'm looking around at the bar I'm at, and I'm like, what's going on? And then you get them to 20, and you're like, Joe, it's about time you put some guys on the perimeter and guard the three-point line. I think they finished with 23. And it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, you're not getting anything from Porzingis. You're not getting anything from Holiday, who I think Holiday was atrocious on defense for a large part of this game. Just absolutely atrocious. White was also kind of bad at points, especially guarding Hero. His foot speed was lacking tremendously, especially when he had a screen there. And I know Bam is Mr. Illegal Screen, but at some point you got to also figure that one out and hedge at Kristaps Porzingis. Anyway, and then if you're Coach Joe, Maz, Ian, give me 1 sec. If you're Coach Joe Maz, you're like, okay, we need to make this a rock fight. We got to guard everything on the three-point line. I don't care if it's Haywood Highsmith. I don't care if it's Tommy Hawkes. This game is going to be a defensive battle because you know you're not getting anything from anyone else. You have to adjust. And Ian's going to tell you that right now. I promise.
Actually, Xavier, this goes back into your Joe Maz point.
Okay.
When someone asked him about Miami's three-point shooting, he said, thought most of those shots were moderately to heavily contested.
What?
Well, let me say this. This is something that I think needs to be. Miami did a phenomenal job at making Boston uncomfortable, right? Why can't Boston make the 8th seeded Miami Heat feel uncomfortable, especially without Terry Rozier, who is their primary ball handler and really this team's only true-blooded point guard? Because a lot of what I saw from Boston defensively tonight was super heavily predicated on the fact of forcing Miami out of the lane and away from the hoop, which doesn't make much sense to me because, yes, they had a bad three-point shooting game in game 1, but if you look at what Miami presents offensively right now, it is shooting. I mean, they do have some guys like Caleb Martin for some reason loves playing us. Hayward Highsmith is not a great three-point shooter. Jaime Jaquez has had his up and downs. Jovic, right? They got Robinson can shoot. Hero can shoot, right? These guys are not phenomenal ball handlers, right? Why is it that Boston on the defensive side of the ball cannot force Miami to the rim in turnovers, right? You got guys that are a bunch of spot-up shooters, really not perimeter-centric players in terms of handling the ball. Why is it that Boston didn't do any of that? And I think that is on Joe, but I also think that the Celtics ball pressure needs to be extremely higher. And again, effort problem. But I will say this as well. the Boston Celtics at some point in this playoffs were due for an ego check. They were. This is a team that won pretty much every time they played at home this year, besides 4 times. Only once did an Eastern Conference team beat them, and it was really they had nothing to play for. So they were due for an ego check. Now, my thing is will what we saw tonight become a habit of when things don't go your way, you're going to whine and pout and scream and cry? Because that's what the Celtics did tonight. They didn't get calls. Miami made them uncomfortable and really were making frustrating looks. So what I want to see from Boston, this is too good of a team, and this year is too high pressure and too make or break for them to just be okay with throwing up their hands, pouting and crying, and not being okay when things don't go their way. Because that's really, you ask me what happened tonight, you can bring up all you want with, coaching and this and that. Things didn't go the Celtics' way. And how did they respond? They pouted and they cried. That's how I see it.
I want to read one stat, and we can just let it simmer. The Miami Heat now have 4 playoff games in the last 2 seasons. So this series and going back to last year, where they have shot 50% or more from 3 against the Celtics. No other team has more than won against anybody in NBA history.
Don't even tell me that.
That's not surprising. It's just,
I could have gone my whole life.
That's such a
without knowing
Celtics versus Heat playoff stat.
I got
Right,
one more for you. Caleb Martin's 8 of his 11 best games of all time have come in the last 2 playoffs against the Celtics of his
Of
games.
course they have.
So
Of course they
it's
have.
also that. Yeah.
I mean, at what point, if you're the Boston Celtics, do you just sack up, right? Like, does it happen? I mean, maybe it won't happen, right? And honestly, quite frankly, it's destiny. You're going to see this team at some point, right? If you want to win the ring, it feels like it's destined to go through the Miami Heat. It's better in the first round than the Eastern Conference Finals, quite frankly, if you ask me. But at what point, if you're the Celtics, do you just say, screw this? Like, hit someone, right? Like, back up. Like, at what point do you get into a fight? Do you get into a brawl? Do you just show who you are? Because quite frankly, the Celtics have played like the younger brother, right? They're listening to the narratives. They're listening to what people have to say about the Celtics versus, in the grand scheme of things, the Celtics and the Heat are 1-1, right? The Celtics got them once, the Heat got them once. That's really it. So the Celtics just need to, you ask me, grow up, right? You are the better team. Play like it. If you get uncomfortable, who cares? Like, respond. You respond with what you can do and what you know how to do. It feels like to me that they're so okay with this little brother role that they play to the Miami Heat. And at some point, if you want to win an NBA championship, at no point against any team can you be okay with feeling like a team's little brother. And to me, that's what the Celtics are to the Miami Heat. They're just their little brother. And until that changes, they got, something's got to change, and they got to change quick.
Yeah, to me, it's like it feels like a trap. Like, I think Miami wants it. Like, they're making it. Their goal is to make it like as not a basketball series. They want to win all the little things. They want to make it chippy. They want to like have these hard sending screens. Like, that's just the way they play. That's the Heat culture, the toughness, the grit, and I don't know. It's such a mental hurdle just to get over that. Like, when you go 1 for 1, Celtics are so much better. And we've seen the Celtics play Celtics basketball against the Heat. It's so inconsistent. Like, even last year in the playoffs, in games 4, 5, and 6, we saw Celtics basketball. We saw it in game 1. Like, it's just, they lack the consistency. It's like, if they don't land the first punch, like, you can tell with these games against the Heat, the only way they win is if they get off and they start hot. Look at all the games in the past, they've always had a halftime lead. Like, anytime the Heat are like holding on to a lead and at halftime it's really close, I feel like it's the same story every time. The Heat finish the game on top. But if the Celtics, like they did in game 1, come out, throw the first punch, and they're up 15, they're just too good to, like, they're just so much better that they can build off of that. And that's something that just they need to get over. Like, they need to start every game like they did in game 1 with intense defense and just throwing that first punch. I think it's so important because anytime, the Miami Heat hang around, it always goes wrong. So That's something I'm keeping my eye on for Game 3.
At what point for me do you look at one of those Bam Adebayo screens? And I know this is going to sound crazy, but do you just run through him? Like, send a message, right?
Holiday tried, and they got
I
called
know
for foul.
that's fine. If you get called for the foul, fine. But I need someone
Kobe
from this
Bryant.
team, right? Yeah, like as cliche, as corny, as crazy as it sounds, like you have to make a statement to this team. You have to
Right.
rattle the Miami Heat. You have to make them uncomfortable. Like, quite frankly, someone like you got to run through a screen. You got to sit someone down. You got to like you know what I'm saying? You got to make a statement. And then offensively, you have to do what works. Ian, it sounds like you got something for me, and I'm interested to hear it.
Well, Jimmy Butler posted an interesting graphic today.
Oh boy.
Oh god.
Maybe I'll just let you guys guess on.
Oh
what he
no.
posted. I don't know.
You got it.
Don't let us get one. He photoshopped his face over Jaylen Brown, and he said,
you know what?
Oh my god.
Might delete later.
And
It's,
you know
it's
what?
too early for that. I don't know.
Yeah. You know
Come
what?
on now.
Good. They're
Yeah,
saying good.
I like that.
You
Yeah,
know,
they were
like,
running
good.
their mouth the
Yeah,
entire
right?
game. Like, did you see Tyler Hero, the rookie? Yaquez is running his mouth way too much for his first year, although he has been absolutely balling. You look, Tyler Hero, he's trying to step up. They're just doing anything they possibly can to get onto the Celtics' skin.
Right.
Grabbing jerseys, hooking arms. Duncan Robinson was locking up with Jason Tatum. They know exactly what's bothering Jason Tatum,
Right.
and they're
And that's
exploiting it. And
that goes back to my point. It's like you have to send a message to these guys, right? It's like they think that they are the older brother, right? And at some point, if you're the younger brother, you have to look the older brother in the eye. And you know what I'm saying? Like, at some point, they have to do that. And I look at Tatum and I look at Brown, and I've seen glimpses of it, right? Brown standing up to Caleb Martin, kind of, right? Oh, no. It's like at some point, you have to look these guys in the eyes and punch them in the mouth, whether that's figuratively or literally, right? Like, at some point, you need to just say, like, screw these guys. We are the better team. In the Celtics, they haven't done that, and they need to. And if they don't, then honestly, if they can't, then so be it, right?
Yeah.
Because and I do think this, because I still think we win this series in 5 games. 6 would be nuts. I don't see it 6. I think the Heat are not as talented enough, and they don't have, the Jimmy Butler, superstar effect that will have them be able to take the Celtics through the series. I think this loss is going to wake this team up. I mean, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but like this bulletin board material is good for the Celtics, right? Like I don't know. That's how
it should be. Like, we're the little brothers who are a foot taller than our older brother, but the older brother just has superiority because he's kicked our ass throughout our childhood. But we hit puberty, and it just has to happen now. But
Yeah, but this is ridiculous at this point. This isn't 2022 anymore, where you turn your season around and you're playing with house money and you're kind of coming into your own and you make a finals run. You're the best team in the league. You just won 64 games. You lost 4 games at home, and one of them you didn't even really care to win. So at what point do you have some more pride? And that goes to the players as well, because I think toughness is a bit overrated when you're just significantly better than the other team, because basketball is a little bit more finesse than some other sports. But, and this is the crucial but, Miami is so much more physical and so much more in the Celtics' heads that at what point are you going to stand up for yourself? And I'm not saying you punch him. I'm not saying you run through a screen. I'm just saying if you're Jason Tatum, go at Bam. Go right at him. Or if you're Jaylen Brown, to talk your stuff. Because look, Jaylen Brown was good offensively tonight. You know what he was terrible at? Navigating screens. He got caught like 7 times. He was awful. So at what point are you like, okay, we really need to win this game. We're going to just do everything we can. We're going to be super physical with them within the realm of the game. We're going to talk our stuff. We're going to be fine. I just feel like for me, watching this team, these are growing pains that should be already gone. And that goes back to the regular season. That goes back to the coach. That goes back through the last few years as well. Because I think some of these habits you shouldn't be seeing in Game 2 of the playoffs. And I understand that if they win in 5, this is all kind of minute and this is an overreaction. It is what it is. But I feel like we're still talking about stuff that we were complaining about last year and the year before and so on and so forth.
Jalen's calling it a fluke.
Jalen's called it a fluke.
Well, he didn't, not word for word, but he's saying that they closed him out well and stuff, and they were just guys that normally don't make shots were making them. So,
which I mean, yeah. So let's get on to let's talk about what we need to do on for heading into game 3. Right, from a like a literal standpoint, right? We kind of we touched on what this relationship with the Celtics.
Rah.
Right. But basketball wise, what the Celtics need to, I think, do is kind of get back to who they are offensively, guys. But when you look at what the Heat just did offensively against us, what changes do the Celtics need to make, do you think, in order to that it's just intensity, you think?
Well, for me, I'm looking at the beginning of game 1. Like, to me, there's no doubt the Celtics can be the best defensive team in the NBA, but it's only when they want to be. It's not all the time. And the way they started game 1 on defense, like, you could tell the intensity was there. But tonight it was slow. Like, the shots that Caleb Martin was making when he was shooting them in the corner, it felt like they were half contested. Like, that just can't be happening. Like, I'm looking at Porzingis too. Like, defensively in game 1, he was solid. Tonight, him and Horford, like Bam's mid-range shot, they couldn't do anything. So to me, it's intensity and switching as well. I think the one adjustment that might be made is Tyler Hero. I think their game plan might be more so to let Tyler Hero beat them than the role players, because today when Tyler Hero would come over a screen with Bam, they would like blitz him and there would be like 3 guys. Then they would hit Bam cutting, and then that leads to an open shot in the corner. So the way I see it is in game 3, I wouldn't be surprised if they let Tyler Hero shoot the ball more and take away shots from, the role players that always torch us for some reason. So I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
I see it too, because again, it just gets back to like a role player should not be as comfortable as the Celtics let the role players be. I think if you put ball pressure high, the Heats are very prone to turning over the basketball. You saw it tonight. When the Celtics did, put pressure on the Heat, they did turn the ball over. So I think, that's something that Brown did early in game 1. He picked up full court. I would love to see the Celtics get in the Heat's face defensively from 94 feet and really put that ball pressure on Miami and run them. Honestly, call me crazy. Run them off the 3-point line. You force them to drive. Driving. I think forcing this Heat team to drive is going to cause turnovers. And this, I think there's only a couple guys on this Heat team that are really great around the basket. Jaquez and Adebayo, obviously. I don't think, some of the Hero, I think it gets rough once he has to, when a shot's not falling. And Robinson, obviously, I don't think Robinson is going to be great off the dribble either. So it's like that's what I see from this defensive standpoint. It's like, why are we letting these guys lightly contested or heavily contested, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, why are we letting these guys be comfortable? We got to talk about the role players, though. We do. They were bad. Hauser, Pritchard, they gave us nothing tonight, and it kind of felt like this is the game where you expect one of those guys to step up, and they didn't.
Yeah, and they weren't allowed to either, though. Pritchard, I don't think he got a shot up for like 18 minutes when he was out there. And Hauser, they ran a few plays for, but it didn't seem like they were really interested in letting him kind of roam in the corners like he usually does, the V cuts back and forth along the ways. But look, here's another thing. We can hold our role players accountable all you want, whine about it all you want that we haven't so far. It's the playoffs. How about that? How about your starters do what they're supposed to do? And Joe Maz did something early that was a little weird. Tatum was getting going. He had 10 points very quickly. He played 5 minutes. Joe Maz subbed him out and let Brown stay in. And Brown had a good game. But I think the problem is these rotations are not normal. Throughout the regular season, that's opposite, right? A lot of times Tatum finishes the first, and then Brown comes in at the start of the second. And some of these lineups haven't been what we've expected throughout the regular season. And I think Al Horford, for example, he played a little bit different as far as his role tonight as well. I think I would have liked Tillman to at least try to check Bam a little bit. I think size-wise, he's a better physical matchup. Maybe not as far as spacing the court, but that doesn't matter. And so before I leave out of here, I want to say KP was terrible. Pritchard wasn't really allowed to do anything. He wasn't good, but at the same time, he He wasn't allowed to run in transition. There's plenty of times Celtics had their heads down when he was cutting up court. It's just some of these things where, like, look, it doesn't matter if Brown drops 33 when he allows 30 on threes because he doesn't close out. It doesn't matter that Tatum has whatever he had. He had like 28, right? It doesn't matter when he's not having defensive intensity and he's guarding Duncan Robinson, who's just standing there, while Jaime Jaquez is also just standing there wide open, hitting threes or cutting to the rim. It's not all about scoring. There's more to basketball. And I feel like some of that is game mentality. And that's when you have to push the pace, which they didn't do. That's when you have to let these role guys at least try to get comfortable on the floor, which they didn't do. So there's just a lot to the game. And a lot of it was coaching. A lot of it was on the players, as we mentioned. It's just a total team failure. That's what it was.
Yeah, I agree. I think, when you look at the players, Pritchard, it was basically impossible for Pritchard and Hauser and Horford to have a good game tonight. And that says a lot about the Celtics offense tonight. They weren't playing Celtics basketball. They were matchup hunting all night. They weren't swinging the ball and playing Celtics basketball, hitting the open threes. And that obviously caught up to them. And when that ball's moving, that's when Pritchard gets his open three and Hauser starts firing and Horford as well. And it makes sense that we didn't see that tonight, I guess. I mean, when you look at all the turnovers and the matchup hunting. So that they got to get back to playing Celtics basketball for sure.
You just nailed it. Like, our bench players aren't suited for like checking in and dominating a playoff game, right? Or like that's not who they are. They are really reliant on the top guys, getting them in spots to be successful. And, maybe you do blame Tatum and Brown a little bit. Maybe Tatum and Brown got a little, ISO heavy got a little tunnel visioned because, the fact that you saw some of those players play the way they did, maybe you do point the finger at Brown and Tatum because, Finn, you kind of nailed it. This team was really isocentric and really, really just not playing any type of basketball on what they have been and who they are. And it felt like it was, okay, Brown, you go at Hero. Okay, Tatum, you go at Robinson. And it wasn't like, I don't know if there was one possession and I posted it on Instagram in game one. There was a possession that there was a full ball rotation after a kick out that found an open sitting Sam Hauser. It looked very 2014 San Antonio Spurs-esque, right? It was awesome. I don't even know if we had a possession like that resulted in a miss, guys. Like I think it was straight up 48 minutes of isolation.
It was the most predictable game of all time, and the Celtics know the or the Miami Heat know the Celtics like the back of their hand. They know exactly where that ball is going to end up. They were even predicting the Kristaps Porzingis mid-range pull-up that is deemed unguardable, but they were able to still have a strong impact on that just by getting an elbow in his abdomen while he's going up. But I think this team needs to add a level of being able to spread the ball out and calling an audible, if you will. They obviously see that Tatum's trying to set up his ISO over here and they're drawing the double. Why don't we start working the ball around and find holes in the zone? Because Miami runs one of the more effective zones in the league, especially against the Boston Celtics. You start doing that and spreading the ball around, obviously something's going to leak through. And I honestly think that the Celtics offensively should be able to match up with every single one of the players on the Miami Heat and beat them in a one-on-one situation.
Well,
and
I feel like
getting the role players like Hauser, Pritchard, those guys aren't expected to do anything crazy except for just be able to maintain and withhold while our starters get their rest. This is a showing of our six, and Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, they know their roles and they're going to find them. It's just keeping that comfortability that they were able to gain in those final four games.
Well, I will. You go for it. No, 100%. You go for it.
I was just gonna say, like, if we're relying on Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser to win us playoff games, we're not in a good spot. I mean, I think JB and JT were good to maybe slightly above good, The problem for me lies on Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Chris Porzingis and the way they played.
100%.
Tatum can't play the whole game. Non-Tatum minutes, they were a -16. He can't play all 48. So there has to be, if you're so-called the most talented roster in the league, and you're -16 when your superstar goes out, there has to be like KP 6 points. We talked about it over and over again, but it's like there has to be more from those three as the most talented roster in the league. You shouldn't be getting beat by 16 points when only one starter is out. It's not like, oh, you're getting beat by 16 when you're sitting Brown and Tatum at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4 or 5 super capable basketball players still on the floor.
Right.
And you're losing those minutes by 16 points.
I think that when I look at Pritchard and Hauser, I think, again, there's times where you need them and you're calling on them. Tonight, you weren't calling on them. I mean, you could have been, but it's like, again, if you got like 20 out of Derek White, right, in like a really good game, and Porzingis didn't have it, Holiday didn't have it, then I'm looking at one of those two guys, right, to give us something. Because it's like you got 3 guys going, you need one extra guy. It's not Porzingis, right? But it's like, it would be unfair to point the finger at Pritchard and Hauser in a game in which 3 of your top 5 players, right, who, mind you, are all going to be making over like $140 million, right, aren't giving it to you. So I think that's where I'm not going to look at Pritchard and Hauser this game. It would be wrong of me with the way with the way White in the Holiday and Porzingis played, right? Like it doesn't fall on Pritchard and Hauser when you have this disaster class in which you saw from 3 of your 5 starters. I will say this though. This is going to go one or two ways, I think. I don't think there's really any in between with this. This is either going to be the best thing that happens to the Boston Celtics, this loss, or the worst thing that happens to the Boston Celtics. I don't think there's an in between. I don't know. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about that. But I think like they either take this game and turn up. I'm talking about like, because I think there's a worst case scenario, and I don't know if the worst case scenario is the Celtics lose the series. I think like the worst case scenario is the Heat push it to like 7. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I think the biggest thing with the Celtics, and we've said this all season after their losses, it's how they bounce back from them is how they're going to do it. If they go down to Miami and they do the same thing that they did tonight, there might be some concern moving forward. But all we can do is trust the Celtics and hope that their ability to bounce back that they've been able to do in the past can show again. And, you know, we don't hit the worst case scenario.
I also had like one of the things when you look at last year's playoffs, one of the things that burned them is they let series get extended when they shouldn't have. Like Atlanta, why was that a 6-game series last year? Why was Philly a 7-game series even when they probably should have won in 5 or 6? And then obviously, you know, the Heat series, you go down 3-0 and that's kind of it.
Well, that's why for me it's like if they win this series in 6, I'm not happy, right? It's because it's like, all right, we still have the same Boston Celtics. At least that's how I see it. It's because this was supposed to be a little bit different, right? You figured you sweep the Heat, the vibes are it's different, the players are rolling, but it kind of felt like this. It feels like if they beat them in 5, I'll be happy. I'll put this game behind us and the series behind us, and I think. You know, every series is different. I like our matchup in round 2, but again, you got to focus on round 1. But it feels like for me, it's like if I'm the Celtics, you got to be tired of this, right? Of this whole like up and down stuff. So it's like, you know, I expect, and again, maybe I'm putting the benefit of a doubt, but I'm always going to roll with my boys. And, you know, I what I've seen all year has been awesome. And I'm not going to let one bad game in the playoffs in which, mind you, the Heat made more threes than they missed in a game in which they set a playoff franchise record from behind the arc. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was frustrating. It sucked. It wasn't fun. Celtics fans probably had all sorts of PTSD running through their bones. I know I did. No doubt about it. But it's like to really, if you look at the ins and outs of what this game was, it was an anomaly. And I think that's where it's like you have to look at it. If they do it again, like Ian said, I think you nailed it, Ian. Then you that big red button on my desk is I told Finn this. It's I'm taking a hammer to it and I'm slamming it because I'm officially worried.
Mhm.
But I don't know. It's just wait and see, I think, with this team.
Yeah. The issue is, like, we always say, like, it's an anomaly, but, like, it's always something new every game. And that's what's so special about the Heat and Coach Spo. Like, their game plan tonight was to beat us at our own game and make all these open threes. But next game, it's going to be something completely different probably. And, that's what playoff basketball is. And Celtics got to be ready. And I think we can all agree the reality is if the Celtics can get in their rhythm and play Celtics basketball, they should win. And there should be no doubts about that. It's just, how are the Heat going to throw them? How are the Heat going to throw them off this game? Is there going to be more matchup switches, a different player getting minutes? Like, that's the stuff Eric Spoelstra does. And like that's what worries me, because as much as we say it's an anomaly, it's like we kind of fell in this trap last year where it's like, all right, we lost game 1, and same thing happened game 2 and then game 3. So, but at the same time, we have seen that like the Celtics can be the better team, and like roster wise, chemistry wise, defensively, offensively. So, as long as they're connecting on all cylinders, there's no doubt in my mind the Celtics should and can win.
I mean, on the
You
bright
do have
side,
to-
the 08 Celtics lost 10 playoff games and they were 16-10.
Oh, I'm gonna. Hey, listen, I'm gonna stop you there.
Al Horford.
I can't entertain that this year because Ian, I'm sure you remember this from last year. How many times did we say that?
We said that so many times. So many.
I wasn't here last year as much, so now
I don't know. The more that we've gone on tonight, the more that I'm wondering, like, do they feel embarrassed? Like
I hope.
I don't
right?
think so.
Like,
I don't know. I don't think so.
Like, I don't know. At the end
I
of the
mean-
game, Tatum looked pissed because he was slamming the ball.
I think they're upset. I don't think
But-
they're embarrassed.
I think they're upset.
I think
but
they're
like,
I think they're still calm though. If you look
I feel
at,
like
like
I feel like there
pressers.
should be a little bit of embarrassment in there though, because like
Right. Yes.
we this was literally every person out there was saying this should be a sweep, and like if they were gonna steal a game, it would be in Miami.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you know what's
I don't
scary
know,
though
it's-
about the
it's
whole
kind of
thing?
annoying.
What's scary to me is what Finn shared about the Jaylen Brown quote. She's like, you can't look, and I know I said it was an anomaly, right? But I'm not in the locker room. That's like, if I was playing, that's not my mindset. I
Mhm.
feel like if you're the players, you got to be like, we just got punked. We just got punked on our home court. So I don't know.
Without Terry and Jimmy.
Right. It's like, I think that's where they got to be at, because if you're sitting here, if they're the Celtics and you're still on this high horse pedestal that you hold yourself to, like, well, Celtics are 64, that's not going to get you anywhere. So I don't know. I don't know. Again, I'm not in the locker room. I don't have insider information. Maybe one day I will, but I don't know. That quote from Jaylen Brown, the more I think about it, is more a little worrisome, because it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Is it a mentality thing? Is a good question. Are they
Well,
embarrassed?
He said this is Jalen on Physicality said it's a mindset. You just got to embrace it, and I don't think we did, and they embraced it.
Okay.
So-
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean,
But like, I hate that after the fact so much, because it's like,
Yeah.
if you know the problem, then why didn't you do it? Like, why? I don't know. It's so annoying listening to some of those quotes sometimes.
Because even before the games in practice, they were like, if you think this is going to be like game 1, and you think it's going to be a completely different game, and we have to come out with like the intensity, and it wasn't there.
Yep. And we have to wait till Saturday. So
That's the other part that sucks. Who the hell scheduled this series?
yeah,
Maybe the stupidest.
we have to watch First Take for 3 days. Just
72 hours of terrible takes.
yep.
And Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah.
Has Kendrick Perkins tweeted tonight?
I'm not
posted
checking.
it.
If
He
you
posted
think
a
I'm going
video.
on Twitter tonight, you're so wrong.
I
He
know.
dropped
I'm
a
looking
video
up.
on it, like a reaction.
Oh no!
Oh,
there's that
all right,
minute
I'm
and a
not
half
watching
video.
Yeah, I'm not watching it either.
I'm not watching that.
There's a
So
minute
All right.
and a
Well,
half
listen,
video.
guys, thank you so much for joining us in for our Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. Game 3 will be in Miami on Saturday, April 27th. That tip-off is at 6 p.m. Again, really weird timing, and it's scheduling for this series. After the final buzzer sounds there, come right back here, because we'll have you covered for Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. And again, Celtics embarrassment in game 2 at home, 111-101 to the Miami Heat. They drop game 2 of a first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Jaylen Brown led all Celtics scorers, 31 points. JT just behind him with 28. Series is tied up at 1-1, heading back to Miami. Let's hope that this Boston Celtics team can bounce back, guys. I'm Rob, Finn, Ian, Franco, Zach. We got a packed crew tonight, guys. Again, thank you so much for joining us in. Until next time, guys, you know the drill, man. Go Celtics.